Miss, your face looks disgusting. The waitress froze in the middle of the diner. Her hand trembled, water spilling onto her skirt. Laughter erupted from a nearby table. The scars on her cheeks stood out harshly under the fluorescent lights. She didn't speak, didn't react, but then a teenage boy in the corner booth stood up, looked directly at them, and said exactly 6 words. Have you witnessed injustice like this? Type yes if it broke your heart too. Welcome to QH. Let's uncover what really happened. Claire Weston, 34, was a veteran who had served 2 tours in Afghanistan. 3 years ago, she had been caught in an IED explosion that left visible scars across her face and neck, a roadmap of survival etched into her skin. When she returned home, administrative jobs that matched her military experience mysteriously disappeared once employers saw her in person. After 6 months of rejections, Claire accepted a waitressing position at a small diner in her rural hometown. She needed to pay rent, and Marge's diner was the only place that would hire her. Each day, Claire worked diligently, never complaining, never mentioning her past. She learned to ignore the stares, the whispers, the way parents pulled their children closer when she approached their tables. On this particular Sunday morning, the diner was packed with the after-church crowd. Claire balanced 3 plates along her arm while carrying a pitcher of orange juice in her other hand. As she carefully set down a plate of pancakes, she heard the unmistakable hiss of whispered judgment. Why would they hire someone who looks like that? Ruins my appetite completely. Claire turned away, maintaining her silence. The pitcher in her hand trembled slightly, causing ripples across the orange liquid surface. Marge, the owner, witnessed the exchange from behind the counter. Instead of supporting her employee, she frowned at Claire as if she had somehow caused the disturbance by merely existing. A young child walking past with his mother pointed directly at Claire's face and asked loudly, "Mommy, what happened to that lady's face?" The mother yanked her son's arm, hurrying away without acknowledging Claire. "Don't stare," she scolded, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's rude to look at people like that." Claire forced a smile, focusing on her breathing the way her therapist had taught her. In through the nose, count to 4. Out through the mouth, count to 6. The rhythm had gotten her through firefights in Kandahar. It could get her through Sunday brunch in Tennessee. "Order up for table 7, the cook called out. Claire collected the plates, adjusting her name tag that also displayed a tiny American flag pin, the only acknowledgement of her service she allowed herself at work. Most customers never noticed it. "Could we get some more coffee over here?" A man at table 5 waved impatiently, then visibly recoiled when he saw who would be serving him. Claire pretended not to notice. During a brief lull, she retreated to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. The mirror reflected back scars that medical procedures could only partially address. Pink, puckered skin that pulled at the corner of her right eye created a permanent dimple in her cheek. She had stopped seeing them years ago. Why couldn't others? When Claire returned to the dining room, she noticed a teenage boy at table 9 watching her intently. Unlike the others, he wasn't staring at her scars. He was looking directly into her eyes, his hand resting over his heart in a gesture she hadn't seen since leaving the military. "If you believe good people deserve to be remembered, stay here with us." Claire continued her shift, though the weight of judgment grew heavier with each passing minute. The whispers had become more audible, the stares more brazen. Even Sandra, the other waitress on duty, had started taking tables that should have been Claire's rotation. "Table 4 needs a refill," Sandra said, deliberately avoiding Claire's eyes. "But maybe I should take it. They seem—" "I can handle my section," she replied quietly, reaching for the coffee pot. As she approached table 4, an elderly man in a golf shirt looked up with undisguised disgust. "Isn't there someone normal who can bring our food?" The words hit Claire like physical blows. She had survived combat, but these casual cruelties still had the power to wound her. She lowered her eyes, mumbling an apology as her vision blurred with unshed tears. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir. I'll see if someone else can assist you." The man's companion, a woman with expensive jewelry and a meticulously maintained appearance, added, "It's just that we're trying to eat, you know. It's distracting." Claire nodded mechanically and retreated. 7 steps to the kitchen. That's all she needed to manage without breaking down. Marge intercepted her behind the counter, pulling her toward the staff room. Claire, honey, could I have a word? The small office smelled of cigarettes and cheap air freshener. Marge fidgeted with a stack of receipts, avoiding Claire's gaze. Look, I value your work ethic, I do. But if customers are uncomfortable, I understand, Claire replied, her voice steady despite the crack forming in her heart. You need to think about business. Maybe we could move you to kitchen duty or evening shifts when it's darker and less crowded. Claire had once received a Purple Heart for bravery under fire. She had coordinated medical evacuations, while bullets tore through the tent around her. Now she was being asked to hide in the shadows, because her wounds made people uncomfortable. I'll finish my shift, was all she said. Back in the dining room, Claire noticed the teenage boy at table 9 was still watching her. He looked about 16, with earnest eyes that seemed older than his years. Unlike the others, his gaze held no disgust, only a quiet intensity that Claire couldn't interpret. At table 8, a group of men in business casual attire were enjoying their meal when one noticed Claire refilling water glasses nearby. Hey Jim, one called to his friend, deliberately raising his voice. Remember that horror movie we saw last week? The main character kind of looked like. He jerked his head toward Claire. Laughter rippled through the group. One man had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he joined in anyway. What no one in the diner knew was that Claire's scars came from pushing two fellow soldiers away from an exploding vehicle. The official military report described her actions as extraordinary heroism in the face of grave danger. The explosion had killed 3 others instantly. Claire had dragged a wounded comrade 100 yards to safety, despite her own severe injury. Now she accepted mockery with the same stoic resolve she had shown on the battlefield. The teenage boy at table 9 stood slightly, as if about to speak, then sat back down when his mother placed a gentle hand on his arm. His eyes never left Claire, watching as she endured another cutting remark, another deliberate snub. Claire didn't know that the boy was Logan Hayes, son of Major Andrew Hayes, a soldier who had served in her unit. Logan had grown up hearing stories about the brave medic, who had saved multiple lives during their deployment. His father had shown him pictures of his unit, including one of Claire before her injuries, standing proudly in her uniform. Logan had recognized her immediately, not from the scars, but from her eyes, the same determined eyes from his father's photographs, the same eyes that had looked out from the frame on their mantle for years. Have you ever seen someone mistreated and wished you could help? Comment below. The tension in the diner escalated when a new group entered and was seated in Claire's section. 4 men in golf attire, loud and demanding from the moment they sat down. Hey Scarface, can we get some service over here? One called out, eliciting roars of laughter from his companion. Claire approached their table, notepad ready, her professional smile firmly in place despite the deliberate cruelty. Welcome to Marge's. What can I get for you today? What happened to your face? Another man asked bluntly. Bar fight? Car accident? I can recommend the pancake special, Claire replied, ignoring the question. Or our famous country breakfast comes with. I asked you a question, the man persisted, his voice dropping to a menacing tone. What's wrong with your face? The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. At the counter, Marge pretended to be engrossed in the register. Sandra disappeared into the kitchen. I was injured while serving in Afghanistan, Claire finally answered, her voice quiet but steady. Now about your order. Afghanistan, snorted one of the men, nudging his friend, probably working kitchen duty and spilled something on herself. Woman in combat, what a joke. Claire's hand trembled slightly, causing her pen to scratch unevenly across her notepad. She had been a combat medic, assigned to a forward surgical team, but explaining herself felt futile. I'll give you gentlemen a moment to decide, she said, turning to walk away. No, wait, one man called, deliberately knocking his water glass to the floor. Look what you made me do with your shaking, clean it up. Claire bent down to gather the broken glass, her cheeks burning with humiliation, as she felt dozens of eyes on her back. Claire, enough. Marge's voice cut through the silence, as she emerged from behind the counter. That's it, you're making everyone uncomfortable, I need you to clock out. Claire stood, shards of glass still in her hands. I haven't finished my shift. I'm sorry, but it's just not working out. These disruptions are bad for business. Claire stood frozen, not from shock, but from the effort it took not to break down. She had survived worse than this, much worse. You're firing me because of how I look. The words escaped before she could stop them. I'm firing you because customers are complaining, Marge replied, but couldn't meet Claire's eyes. The tension in the diner was suffocating. Some patrons looked down at their plates in shame, others watched with morbid fascination. No one spoke up. It was at this moment that Logan, the teenager from Table 9, rose to his feet. He stepped away from his family's booth and walked to the center of the diner. His mother reached for him, whispering, "Logan, sit down," but he gently shook off her hand. "Can I say something?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly with adolescent uncertainty and emotion. The unusual interruption caused everyone to turn. The diner fell completely silent. Logan looked directly at Claire, then turned to address the room of strangers. His voice grew stronger as he spoke 6 simple words. "She saved my father's life twice." The statement hung in the air, powerful in its simplicity. Logan pulled a worn photograph from his wallet. "This is my dad," he said, displaying a picture of a soldier in combat fatigues, arm around a female medic. Claire before her scar. "Major Andrew Hayes, 10th Mountain Division, 2 Purple Hearts." He walked closer to Claire, respect evident in his posture. "My dad told us how their convoy was ambushed, how Sergeant Sullivan, Claire, pulled him from a burning Humvee after the IED hit." Logan's voice grew steadier as he continued. "She carried him almost a football field length, while under fire. She used her own body to shield him from a secondary explosion." Claire stood motionless, tears now flowing freely down her scarred face. "Those scars you're all staring at, that's what courage looks like." An elderly man in the corner slowly stood, his movements deliberate. "I served in Vietnam," he said, 48 years ago. "I've been sitting here watching this happen, saying nothing." He turned to Claire and offered a formal salute. "Ma'am, I apologize for my cowardice today." A woman at a nearby table wiped tears from her eyes. "I'm so ashamed," she whispered. Even the men who had been mocking Claire seemed stunned into silence, their arrogance deflated by the teenager's simple testimony. Marge approached Claire, her earlier authority replaced with visible remorse. "Claire, I didn't know. I never asked." "You never asked. You never asked any of us," Logan said, addressing the entire room. "You just decided who she was by looking at her." One by one people began to stand, first Logan's family, then the elderly veteran, then others, a silent acknowledgement of their collective failure and a tribute to the woman they had judged so cruelly. The diner erupted in applause, not for good service or a special occasion, but because for the first time they truly saw the beauty in the scars they had previously scorned. Have you ever made the right choice when everyone else walked away? Your story matters too. Within a week, Marge's diner displayed a new sign in the window, proudly serving veterans, all welcome here. Claire didn't stay long after that day. A representative from the Veterans Affairs Office contacted her, offering a position as communications coordinator for their outreach program. "We need people who understand what it means to come home change," they told her. On her last day at the diner, customers lined up to leave her tips and notes of appreciation. Some apologized directly, others couldn't meet her eyes, but their generosity spoke volumes. Marge presented Claire with a framed painting. A local artist had created a portrait of Claire in her waitress uniform, but with an American flag as the background. "So we never forget what service really looks like," Marge said, her usual brusque manner softened by genuine remorse. Logan and his family became regular visitors to the VA office, where Claire worked. His father, Captain James, volunteered alongside Claire to help veterans struggling with their return to civilian life. 6 months later, Claire was invited to speak at the local high school's Veterans Day assembly. As she approached the podium, she saw Logan in the front row, standing at attention like a young soldier. When it was his turn to introduce her, he stood tall before his peers and said, "Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear aprons and serve you breakfast. Sometimes they carry scars that tell stories of courage most of us will never understand." Claire touched the raised tissue along her jawline, a gesture that had once been self-conscious, but now carried pride. She had stopped seeing her scars as disfigurement. They were proof that she had faced unimaginable danger, and survived to help others. "Scars don't make us ugly," she began her speech. "They tell the story of a battle we survived, often so others could live." She paused, looking directly at Logan. "And sometimes it takes just 6 words from a brave young person to make the whole world stop and listen." Across town, Marge's diner now featured a wall of honor, displaying photos of local veterans. At its center hung Claire's picture, with a small plaque that read, Courage serves daily. Have you witnessed or experienced injustice like this? Share your story, it deserves to be heard too. Subscribe for more incredible stories so YouTube can remind you daily, doing what's right is never alone. Claire had stopped waiting for the world to understand her pain, but in that single moment, with one boy's voice piercing years of silence, she realized something powerful. Scars can be loud too, not from pain but from everything they've protected, and sometimes a stranger's courage can restore years of stolen dignity.